2 seconds to go. Puts it up and scores at the buzzer. Oh, the man is out on the field.
That's another knockdown. You're not getting up till he get up.
You believe in miracles? Yes.
You are now listening to the All Things Sport Podcast with your hosts, Damian Banks and Pierre Banks on Spreaker Radio. Fellas, you know what to do.
What's happening? What's up? How y'all doing? It's the All Things Sport Podcast, and I am Damian Banks.
And of course, I'm Pierre Banks.
And Pierre, today is the first podcast of 2016. 2015 is in our rearview mirror. 2016 is upon us. Welcome to a new year. Happy New Year to everyone out there listening to the All Things Sport Podcast.
Happy holidays to everybody. Just wanted to say to everyone who's been sending me all the hate text messages and angry phone calls, we are sorry we weren't on the air the past 2 Fridays. It was the holidays. We decided to take a break to hang out with family, eat good food for the past 2 holidays. But we will be back to our regular schedule starting next Friday. The podcast will be on every Friday morning on Spreaker Radio.
But we right back at it like trucker hats.
Show you right. And let's just make 2016 better than 2015.
Now, for me, the mantra for 2016 is please let NC State win some type of championship in some sport, man. I don't care if it's basketball, baseball, bass fishing, women's softball, track and field, something, man. Give a lifelong NC State fan something to cheer about.
Not a national championship.
ACC championship.
A coastal championship.
Something. I would accept some type of championship back in Raleigh, North Carolina, man. With that being said, this is the All Things Sport Podcast. Every show, man, we give you our hot topics. We give you one of the favorite segments, among our listeners, bruh, for real. We give you our top 5. And our top 5 on this episode is going to be the top 5 moments of 2015. And of course, always we give you the Omen, which is a prediction, a big game prediction for the upcoming week. But we get started, as always, Pierre, with what?
The All Things Sport Hot Topic.
Now, the hot topics, of course, is going to be the college football playoffs. The final 4 games have already been played. Let's start with the number 1 seed and the number 4 seed, the Clemson Tigers and the Oklahoma Sooners. I know you want to give me the business about the Oklahoma Sooners.
I mean, you didn't even let me get started before you tried to head me off at the pass. Like, I've been telling you and whoever else will listen for weeks that the Oklahoma Sooners did not belong in not only the conversation, but to be considered one of the top 4 teams in the country. I've been telling you that. And now we finally have validation. They finally going up against a good team, someone who plays defense, someone who actually has their starting quarterback in the lineup, someone who can halfway coach in Dabo Swinney. And I mean, I'm not one to say I told you so, but I told you so. They just didn't belong there, and it showed on the field on Thursday night.
Pierre, I'll let you get your say in. Now, let me be professional and just give you and preface what happened, in that game between Clemson and OU. Now, the final score, 37-17. Clemson Tigers. But at halftime, OU had a 17-16 lead. You don't get a lead at halftime by accident. OU played a pretty good first half. Deshaun Watson turned the ball over right before halftime when Clemson was in field goal range, resulting in Oklahoma taking a 17-16 halftime lead. Now, I'm a big advocate. All season, I've been a big advocate, a big fan of Clemson and Deshaun Watson. Watson plays wise beyond his years, had a fantastic game. He's cool under pressure, rushed for 145 yards and a touchdown. And also Clemson's fantastic running back, Wayne Gallman, 150 yards and 2 touchdowns. Clemson's running game, outstanding against Oklahoma. They basically wore the Sooners down, rushed for over 300 yards as a team. against Oklahoma. So Clemson, they won that game on the ground. Again, Watson, cool under pressure, makes plays when Clemson needs plays to be made. Clemson's defense, not to leave them out, they played stout. Now, Baker Mayfield did throw for over 300 yards against Clemson, but he had 2 costly interceptions.
2 crucial turnovers.
Clemson's defense limited Samaje Perine and the Oklahoma Sooner ground game to under 100 yards for the game. Kudos to the Clemson Tigers.
They beat him up. Damien. Samaje Perine had to leave the game multiple times. Then you had Joe Mixon, who was on the sideline for most of the game after taking those licks from the Clemson defense. When you go against a good team and a team that plays defense, these results can happen to you. And I'm glad you said something about them being in the game for one half. Well, you played ball just like I played ball, and you know that there are 2 halves to a game. Anybody can play well for a half, but to be a great team, to be one of the top 4 teams in the country, you got to play well for 2 halves.
Pierre, now, we don't want to get ahead of ourselves because we haven't talked about the Alabama-Michigan State game, but every game you play football just like I played football. Every game is different. Clearly, Clemson is a better team than Oklahoma, but you can't knock Oklahoma for being in that position in the Final Four. They lost 1 game on the season.
To Texas.
Okay, I don't care if they lost to Wake Tech Community College. They lost 1 game on the season. And the College Football Playoff Committee saw fit to put them in the top 4.
And they need to be on the hot seat. Booger McFarland, the selection committee needs to be on the hot seat. Make some noise on your show. Get them out of here.
Now, Clemson, Oklahoma, a blowout, 37-17 for the Clemson Tigers. They're moving on to the national championship game. Our second game of the night was the Alabama Crimson Tide and the Michigan State Spartans.
Which I thought was going to be a slugfest. I thought
and
it was a lot better than what it was.
It was a slugfest. Alabama repeatedly pimp slapped Michigan State, and Michigan State had no answers. So if you want to bash Oklahoma for getting ran off the field, bash Michigan State for getting embarrassed. I said it. Mark D'Antonio is a fantastic coach, has taken Michigan State to heights, that they haven't been in many years. But they got embarrassed against Alabama, man. No ifs and buts about it. They got embarrassed.
They did.
But I say that Michigan State deserved to be in that Final Four.
Absolutely. They won the Big Ten, the best conference in the country.
They lost 1 game. They won the Big Ten. They won the Big Ten championship. It's just that they ran into a buzzsaw. They ran into a bad matchup.
Yeah.
Alabama controls both lines of scrimmages, the offensive line and the defensive line. Michigan State wants to control the ball. They want to run the ball and make timely plays. They couldn't drive down the field against Alabama. Alabama's just too strong up front. Nick Saban had his team prepared, and they basically, like I said before, they pimp slapped Michigan State to the tune of a 38-0. How do you get shut out? How are you one of the top 4 teams in the country, but you get shut out? Because every game is different. Jacob Coker had a great game against Sparty. Jacob Coker survived one of the biggest hits I've ever seen him take. When he was blindsided by Robert Kendichi, when Robert Kendichi jumped out of that window and hit Jacob Coker. I set you up for that.
Bruh. For real?
I drawed you in. In all seriousness, Jacob Coker had a great game. 286 yards passing, 2 touchdowns versus Sparty. 183 of those yards, and both of the touchdowns going to Calvin Ridley. Heisman Trophy winner Derrick Henry. Pedestrian game, 75 yards on the ground, but he did have 2 touchdowns. Again, Alabama destroyed Michigan State to the tune of 38 to Lovelace. 38 to Zap, 38 Donut, 38 Krispy Kreme, however you want to call it, shutout win for the Crimson Tide. And the national championship game is set January the 11th. The Clemson Tigers, Dabo Swinney was a walk-on.
And Bama.
Sports,
yep.
You can't write these stories. Dabo Swinney, Pierre, was a walk-on wide receiver at Alabama. He's leading his team, the Clemson Tigers, against Alabama and Nick Saban for the national championship game. And you can't write it.
We got to have guts to be a walk-on in Alabama. You got to have guts.
And as Dabo said, man, this is a BYOG, man. Bring your own guts. It's a feel-good story, if you ask me, man. Walk on to playing for a national championship against, your alma mater, man.
Yeah, Michigan State, like you said, they didn't look particularly well against the Alabama Crimson Tide. And like you said, it was a matchup deal. It was Michigan State's strength playing into the strength of the Alabama Crimson Tide. And like you said, that front seven of that Alabama defense,
It's a serious problem.
it's phenomenal. I mean, they are National Football League ready.
The Alabama front seven is a serious problem, and it's going to pose a serious problem for the Clemson Tigers in the national championship game. But we'll talk about that on our Omen segment. But Pierre, Alabama, they're well coached. We know Nick Saban is a fantastic coach, has the opportunity to win his 5th national championship, tying Bear Bryant, in that regard. And you can't say enough about what Dabo has brought to Clemson, man. Years ago, Clemson was known to stumble. It was a term called Clemsoning, where they would stumble, they wouldn't live up to their potential. But, January the 11th, they'll be playing for their 2nd national championship in school history. Can't say enough about Dabo Swinney either.
Right now, I'm high on Dabo Swinney, and I don't mean the type of high that comes with the jail sentence. After Dabo and company took care of business against the Oklahoma Sooners, one of the first things to come out of his mouth in the post-game interview on the field was, I give all the glory to God. When was the last time you heard of a coach at any level saying that they give the glory to God? You hear a lot of that from players and things like that. And, this is not a show that taps a lot into religion, but that's admirable to hear a coach saying, as his first words after 14-0 season, winning the Orange Bowl, going on to the college football playoff national championship game, saying, giving the glory to God. So I'm real high on Dabo Swinney right now, and I'm kind of rooting for the guy.
Yeah, Pierre, who wouldn't want to root for Dabo Swinney? He has an inviting type of personality. Nick Saban has a standoffish, type personality.
But I
Never met
respect that
either
from
one of those
Saban
guys,
too, though.
but this is just what I see, my interpretation. I'm not a psychiatrist, but I did stay in a Holiday Inn Express last night. I was a sociology major, so I think I read people pretty well. Dabo has a personality where, it's very inviting, very fun-loving guy. Nick Saban is all about business. He dresses for success. He wakes up in the morning with a suit on. So it's going to be a very contrasting style of play. Clemson is a very up-tempo team. Although they do run the ball, they're very up-tempo. Alabama is going to be deliberate in their approach. Again, we're going to talk about that in our Omen segment. Our producer is telling us that we have to go to commercial break. Got more on the All Things Sport podcast. We got our top 5. We got our Bruh for Real. We got Omen. But our next segment is going to be our best segment, according to some listeners. We'll be right back on the All Things Sport podcast with Bruh for Real.
Thank you for listening to the All Things Sport podcast with Damian Banks and Pierre Banks. Be sure to check out the In My Humble YouTube channel for all your sporting needs.
We're back with more of the All Things Sport podcast with Damian Banks and Pierre Banks on Spreaker Radio. Gentlemen, the floor is yours.
Welcome back to the All Things Sport podcast. Pierre, we're having fun as usual, man. We just gave you our hot topics where you immediately tried to, throw pie in my face about the Oklahoma Sooners, man.
You said what you said.
I just think that Oklahoma was not a bad team. They did get mollywopped against Clemson, but
Demolished.
I still don't think they're a bad team. Clemson is just better. Just like I don't think Michigan State is a bad team. Alabama is just better. Thus, Clemson and Alabama will be playing each other January the 11th in a national championship game. But I digress. And we're going to move on to a fan favorite segment called what? Bruh for Real. And on today's Bruh for Real, it's NFL heavy. Let's just say that.
Landmark day for the All Things Sport podcast watershed event, some might say, where we have the first female recipient, Miko Grimes, the wife of Miami Dolphins cornerback Brent Grimes, 3-time Pro Bowler Brent Grimes, had a profanity-laced Twitter tirade, as described by Adam Beasley of the Miami Herald.
Bruh, for real?
He may have been the first one to respond because one of the first